Once upon a time, in a small town in Abia State, Nigeria, lived a man called Odinaka. Odinaka and his family have experienced untold hardship to him. It was as though from the day he became an adult and decided to be a man, the universe turned their back against him. Everything he did, every single business he ventured into, collapsed even before he started. Odinaka was originally a welder. That was the major skill he learned since he couldn't complete his education. He dropped out at SS1 after the death of his father. So one of his uncles, his mother's cousin who owned a welding business, decided to take him with him to Enugu and teach him the welding skill and trade. Odinaka learned everything about welding and was with his uncle for 4 years, after which his uncle released him and gave him some money to start up on his own. Odinaka was doing well in the beginning. In fact, it was from there he married his wife, his secondary school heartthrob, Ndidi. But soon after he married, his welding business began to collapse and he abandoned it when he got tired of trying. He decided to go into plumbing after that because he had some knowledge about plumbing as well. He sold the few welding tools and equipment he had and bought some little plumbing equipment with it. The plumbing business was also going well at first. He even started selling plumbing materials, and Odinaka had thought plumbing was a thing for him. But 2 years down the line, the plumbing business also started to collapse and he eventually gave up on it as well. Odinaka went into painting after that. He had done a few casual painting jobs as an assistant for one of his uncle's friends while he was with his uncle in Enugu. So he told himself he can do painting and went into it. Once again, the painting job seemed to have a prospect for Odinaka. However, some months down the line, just as it was with the previous businesses he had, even the painting business collapsed. And from then, Odinaka had been into different jobs and businesses one after the other. Vulcanizer, carpentry, cleaning job, and quite a few handy jobs. But he failed at every single one of them. Now, anyone who hears Odinaka's story, or even you, my listeners now, may think that the universe had been unfair to Odinaka and decided to deal with him harshly, as Odinaka himself thought. Or maybe it is his village people that is doing it. But it is not so. Because Odinaka is the one responsible for his misfortunes and woes, himself and his wife Ndidi. Odinaka and Ndidi are the type our African parents would say eat with their two hands. What this means is that Odinaka and his wife do not know how to manage and live within their means. Odinaka and his wife are gluttons. Odinaka and Ndidi love food so much. This is their greatest weakness. Ndidi was always making big pot of soup and would add all kinds of assorted meats to the soup. Goat meat, the head, isiewu, shaki, cow leg, plenty intestines and all the likes. And she and her husband would consume all of it within 2 days with big molds of fufu and would make another round the day after. They ate like this all the time, like they were thieves, and as though every day was their last day on earth, not minding their obese size. It was this eating habit of theirs that caused every business Odinaka did to fail. Because he always end up eating both the profit and capital of the business and will start struggling. Even the skilled jobs he did that required less capital and needed just a few tools, his skill and time, also suffered because most times after eating so much food, he would sleep and snore like a pig and end up not completing jobs on time or would make errors in his attempt to rush the job because he had wasted so much time. Hence, many people began to stop patronizing his services, thereby resulting to more failures and lack of jobs for him to do. Indeed, it was not different. For her, she managed to complete her secondary school education but immediately married Odinaka afterwards when she became pregnant for him. Well, not like her parents had the means to further education because they were poor as well. And they even supported that she married immediately after her secondary school. After marriage and after having her first child, a daughter whom they named Kachi, Ndidi decided that it was food business she wanted to go into. Hmm. Not a bad business, so, but for someone like Ndidi who couldn't control her appetite, it was definitely the wrong business for her to do. Well, Ndidi started the food business. She would wake very early and prepare the food for sale. Different varieties: white rice, jollof, beans, spaghetti, and stew, and then take to her stand down the street to sell. But Ndidi, before noon, would have served herself two large plates of the food she sold. She always ate at home that morning before going to sell o, but by 9 a.m. Ndidi would start feeling hungry again and would serve herself a full plate of food. By 11 a.m. again, she would not be able to control herself and would not be able to ignore the smell of the food and would serve herself another round with many pieces of meat every time, about 3 to 4 pieces every round. And by the time a few customers bought from her, the meats were already finished, and some who would come later would leave and refuse to buy because they could not eat without meat. Indeed, would not even bother herself and would eat whatever of the food left that she did not sell in the evening. Some days, she would even doze off after eating a large meal and would not know when some bad guys would quietly leave after eating without paying her for the food they ate, since she was alone and had dozed off. So, the food business collapsed fast before anyone knew it. After her food business, Ndidi decided that it was thrift business she now wants to do. The money was not there, but Odinaka managed to find the capital. And Ndidi started selling thrift clothes. But of course, the gluttony did not stop. Just like her husband, she squandered both the profit and capital on food. And that was it. That was the life Odinaka and Ndidi lived, trying one business after the other and failing at it due to their glutton habits. As they grew older in years, things became more difficult for them. By this time, they had already had 3 children, a daughter and 2 sons. Life became really hard for them and was showing them pepper. They could no longer even afford to eat a proper 3 square meal, talk more of seeing food to eat in excess. They had not even lost a little weight. Odinaka had to struggle every time to pay his children's school fees. But then, he told himself that he was going to send his children to the university no matter what. He told himself and believed that it was because he and Ndidi didn't get a university education was why they experienced a difficult life, and vowed that he was going to ensure that all his children got a university education. When Kachi, Odinaka and Ndidi's only daughter and first child, finished her secondary school, Odinaka was thinking of how to get money to send Kachi to the university when Chinwe, their neighbor's daughter, who was the same age as Kachi, got married to a very rich man. She is a woman. She does not need much education. Besides, her husband said he would train her in school. Papa Chinwe said to Odinaka when Odinaka asked if he didn't care about sending his daughter Chinwe to the university. 4 months later, a girl who lived with her parents a few houses away along their street also got married to a very wealthy man. The girl was just 2 years older than Kachi. A few weeks after that, the daughter of one of Odinaka's neighbor at the market, where Odinaka now currently sold mobile phone chargers, batteries, and cords, got married as well. The girl was also the same age as Kachi. Now, there was something common about these girls. They were all between the ages of 18 and 21, and they all got married to very wealthy men. But what really caught Odinaka and Ndidi's attention was the fact that these rich men all changed the life of their in-laws, the lives of the parents of the girls they married. They bought them cars, set up businesses for them, or expanded the one they already had, and even did things for the girls' siblings. So, Odinaka and Ndidi began to rethink their decision of sending Kachi to the university first before allowing her to get married. She is a woman. She does not need much education. Besides, any man she marries can train her in school, Odinaka and Ndidi concluded. So, they started pushing their daughter Kachi to give attention to any rich man who showed interest in her. Soon, a man called Chinwendu saw Kachi and picked interest in her. Chinwendu was a rich businessman. Kachi also herself was tired of the hardship they were suffering and also agreed with her parents that she should get a rich suitor who would spend and take care of her and her family, like the other girls. In fact, she even envied her neighbor Chinwe when Chinwe got married to her rich husband. That time, she had secretly wished that it was her. So when her parents told her to start giving attention to men and to rich ones, she was more than happy to. Kachi had just clocked 18 while Chinwendu was 31 years old at the time. But Kachi did not care and jumped on the offer to go out with Chinwendu when he asked her out because he was rich. Kachi went out with Chinwendu almost every day for shopping, dinner, lunch dates. He took her to do her hair, nails, and all the rest. And every time they went out, she would bring takeaway for her parents and siblings. Odinaka and Ndidi became very happy because they started eating and enjoying burgers, shawarma, ice cream, fried rice, and turkey. Kashi would also give them 80% of whatever money Chiwindu gave to her. Thank God though, we had a daughter as our first child though, and a beautiful one at that. Because just see how we are enjoying. Imagine we had only sons. We would wait for them to grow, work, and make money before we can enjoy. And who knows, maybe then we would have long been dead as a result of poverty. Odinaka and Ndidi said to each other as they enjoyed talking meat and counted all the money their daughter was bringing home from Chinwendu. Soon, another man called Onyeka saw Kachi and also picked interest in her. In fact, Onyeka did not even speak to Kachi directly. He went straight to her parents and told them he was interested in their daughter and wants to marry her. Odinaka and Ndidi found out that Onyeka was richer than Chinwendu. He also dashed them a whooping sum of 200,000 naira on his first visit. He said that it was to show how serious he was about marrying their daughter and promised that he was going to give them more goodies. When Odinaka and Ndidi saw the amount and heard there was more, they couldn't resist and promised Onyeka that he was going to marry their daughter. They asked Kachi to start going out with Onyeka as well. Again, another man picked interest in Kachi. His name is Akim. He's Hausa and also very rich. Odinaka and Ndidi encouraged Kachi to go out with Akim as well. At this stage, Kachi was beginning to feel uneasy and afraid because she knew she and her parents were playing a dangerous game. They were collecting money from the three men, and her parents had promised each of the men that they were going to give her hand in marriage to them. But her parents told her not to worry and fear, that they would handle it if any issue arises. Onyeka even bought a nice small Toyota Camry car for Odinaka and paid for a new apartment for them, a flat. Chinwendu opened a nice provision shop for Ndidi. Akim paid their two sons' school fees who were in SS1 and JSS3 at the time, and even settled the fees up to the completion of their secondary school. Funnily enough, neither of these men were aware that they weren't the only ones dating Kachi and that Kachi and her parents were using them to make money and better their lives. One day, Onyeka had bumped into Chinwendu leaving their house and saw that Chinwendu hugged Kachi before he left. When Onyeka inquired to know who Chinwendu was later and why he was hugging his wife-to-be, Odinaka and Ndidi quickly lied that Chinwendu was the son of their cousin who had long been abroad and was now back to the country and came to pay them a visit. That's my cousin's son. He and Kachi are second cousins. Didn't you see that he didn't only hug Kachi, but my other children as well, my sons? Odinaka lied to Chinwendu. Then Chinwendu asked why he hadn't introduced them and that it would have been nice to meet another member of their family. My in-law, see remember I told you that my kinsmen have this belief that Anada, that is, that it would be better that the first daughter in our family marries from our village in order to make our village grow. Remember that it is why we have been delaying the marriage between you and my daughter, because we are yet to convince them that their belief must not apply to our own daughter. So, if we had introduced you to Kachi's cousin, he would go mention it to his father, and his father would mention it to the rest of our kinsmen in return, and they would start making a fuse about it. So that is why we didn't introduce you. Odinaka told Onyeka, lying. Oh, I remember, sir. No problem, my in-law. Take your time and convince them. No rush. And if it requires money and whatever amount to convince them or buy their support, just let me know and I will provide the money, Onyeka said, falling for Odinaka's lies and deceit. And this was the same story and lie they told to Chinwendu when Chinwendu also called later to inquire to know who Onyeka was. They told Akim the same as well, calling Chinwendu and Onyeka Kachi's cousin and Akim a second cousin from a Hausa woman. The three men all fell for Odinaka and his family's lies, and none of them ever suspected because each of them did genuinely like Kachi and each one really wanted to make her his wife. So they were patient and continued spending on Kachi and her parents. Odinaka and Ndidi laughed as they enjoyed everything and believed that they were smart. How so foolish they were. Because they didn't even pause to think what would happen when these men insist they could no longer wait and want the marriage to happen. Anyway, another man again called Collins saw Kachi and picked interest in Kachi as well. Now, Collins was not based in Nigeria. Ever since he was little, he had been in the US after his parents relocated to the US at that time. So, Collins was a US citizen. He visited Nigeria and got captured by Kachi's beauty, her figure, and her now clean looking skin. Clean skin as a result of eating other men's money. Well, Kachi fell for Collins quick. Immediately he asked her out. She didn't even think about it twice. She liked him immediately she saw him because he's an American, an Americana to her. And the way he spoke, he screw. Then she saw some dollars with him. Collins even promised to take her with him to the US when she becomes his wife. Odinaka and Ndidi loved this. They concluded that this was their last bus stop and that they weren't going to play games with Collins, that it was Collins that would be their real son-in-law. He has dollars, foreign currency. He would take us and our daughter with him to the US. So, Chinwendu, Onyeka and Akim would not even see us to cause trouble for us because we would have long gone and be far away in Obodo Yibo before they realized that they had been fooled. Odinaka and Ndidi said to each other laughing. So, they welcomed Collins, accepted many gifts and dollars from him, and then agreed for him to marry Kachi. They got the original bride price list from their kinsmen, but altered the list and increased every single item on the list, multiplying it by up to 3 and some even times 5. Collins paid every single thing and even dropped extra. And the day of the traditional wedding was fixed. Because they know what they have done, Odinaka and Ndidi agreed that the traditional marriage should be a quiet one. Nothing loud, just something simple in their living room in the village. They agreed on this because they want to rule out any slight chance that the other three men they have conned should hear or find out. However, we know that every day is for the thief and one day for the owner. Because if you continue to dey soak garri, one day the garri go pass the water. No be water go pass garri o, na garri go swell pass the water. So, whilst the low-key marriage between Kachi and Collins was going on in their living room in the village, Chinwendu, Onyeka and Akim showed up. Chinwendu had heard from a friend who knows a friend that knows Odinaka's family and is aware of the marriage. So, Chinwendu drove and rushed to their village. Akim, on the other hand, got to find out from one of Odinaka's neighbor in town who somehow got to know that Kachi would be marrying on that day, even though Odinaka and his family had managed to keep it a secret even from their friends and neighbors in town. Akim had gone to their house in town to pay them a visit as he usually does. When when the woman casually told him, they've all went to the village because I think today is Kachi's traditional wedding ceremony. Onyeka also drove in at about the same time and heard what the woman said. So, all three men, individually though, drove to Odinaka's village. They all arrived there at about the same time, one after the other, and indeed met a marriage between Kachi and another man going on. What is going on here? Why is Kachi marrying another man and not me? You promised me, Fa, that Kachi would be my wife. All three men said, one after the other. Who are these men and what are they talking about? Collins asked. The whole living room became chaotic afterwards as the three men started shouting, she is my wife! She is my wife! No, she is my wife! I have done everything for her! I did this! I did that for her! Everyone present and the three men now realized that Kachi and her parents had deceived them. Odinaka tried to speak and was shouting on top of his voice that he was going to pay back everything he collected from them, pleading with the three men that he was sorry and that they should not destroy his daughter's wedding. But all three men refused and said they want nothing other than Kachi. They started dragging her, each man pulling Kachi to himself. Collins as well, also pulling her, shouting that Kachi is his wife by right, by law, because he already paid her dowry. Well, in the heat of the whole thing, Collins became furious and agitated, and so he brought out a gun. His gun he had kept hidden in his clothes. The whole place fell silent. Immediately, everyone set eyes on the gun. With his gun, he threatened the other men to get out, and slowly they did. Now, let the rites continue, he said, pointing to the elderly man conducting the wedding after the other three men had stepped out. By this time, Kachi and her parents were already shaking as they had no idea that Collins owned and carried a gun. The elderly man conducting the rites was also shaking as well as he moved to continue. When, however, Onyeka returned inside with a charm in his hands and threatened to turn everyone in the room into a lizard if they won't give him Kachi. At about the same time, Akem returned as well, holding a dagger knife. Chinwendu followed behind with a cutlass. Apparently, all three men were not willing to give up and had gone to pick up their various arsenals from their cars. Noises erupted in the room again. Collins, angry and without thinking twice, pulled the trigger. Odinaka moved fast and tried to stop him, but it was too late. The bullet went straight right to his chest. Within that split second, Chinwendu had also jumped and was also trying to stop Collins, but fell in the process because he kicked one of the items of the occasion on the ground. So his cutlass flew away from his hands and landed on Ndidi's eyes. So, as the bullet was hitting Odinaka's chest, the cutlass was landing on Ndidi's eyes. The whole thing happened at the same time and so fast. Kachi became confused. She didn't know whom to hold. Her father who was lying in the pool of his blood, or her mother whose eyes was now bleeding and she was screaming. Anyway, Odinaka and Ndidi were rushed to the hospital, but Odinaka died before they got there. Ndidi's eyes was badly damaged because the cutlass was sharp and really cut her deep. So, Ndidi lost an eye and her husband on the same day. In fact, her entire face became badly disfigured and would have been worse if not for the surgery. As for the four men, Collins, Chinwendu, Onyeka and Akim, they all disappeared after the whole incident and nobody heard of them again. Some people said maybe they left the country. At the end of it all, after Ndidi was discharged from the hospital and after Odinaka was buried, Ndidi sat in her room and shed more tears, realizing that it was their greed and deceit that had brought them this loss and misery. And as for Kachi, other men stayed away from her because the story went far not just in their village but also in town where they lived as well, as people gossiped and pointed her as the girl who connived with her parents to dupe and deceive men. So every man who came around afterwards somehow gets to hear the story and they left because they weren't sure she was with them because she liked them genuinely or if it was because she wants to dupe them. The lesson I want you to get from this story is about the dangers of gluttony. Yes, we saw that Odinaka and Ndidi were greedy and deceitful, seeing how they conned those men. But their real problem started with their inability to control their appetite for food. It is what made them unsuccessful in all the businesses they did and what made them poor, resulting to being deceitful at the end. So, in as much as gluttony may sound less likely harmful, it always leads to more issues and dangers in life, other than just health issues alone that many people may think is the only problem. So, anyone caught in the web of wanting to eat and spend so much on food than necessary should check it. Thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this story. Please, before you go, don't forget to share and leave a like to support me. And also hit on the subscribe button for more stories from Iya Agba. And to my already amazing subscribers, I want to say I appreciate and see you all. Thank you so much for your support. I'll see you in my next story. Bye.